Did you ever wonder if the king of rock and roll was actually human? Have you heard those moments when Elvis Presley's supernatural voice revealed its mortality? Number 7, Way Down, 1977. Was Elvis Presley already fading away when he recorded his final single? Way Down hit the charts in June 1977, just 2 months before Elvis left the building forever at age 42. This song, recorded in the jungle room at Graceland, reveals a voice that had lost much of its former glory. When you listen to Way Down, you'll immediately notice how deep Elvis pushes his vocals, trying to sound powerful and commanding. But there's something troubling underneath. His voice has a raspy, strained quality that wasn't present in his prime years. The king was clearly struggling to hit notes that once came effortlessly. The song required multiple takes, with Elvis pushing his baritone to its absolute limits. What makes this recording particularly poignant is knowing what we know now. Elvis was dealing with numerous health problems during this period. His weight had increased dramatically, and he was taking various medications for different ailments. His lifestyle had caught up with him, and you can hear it in every strained note. The irony is that despite these vocal difficulties, Way Down became a massive hit after his death, reaching number 1 in the UK and breaking into the US top 20. Fans were either forgiving of his diminished abilities or simply didn't notice, still entranced by the Elvis mystique. The backing vocals and production work overtime to support and sometimes mask his vocal limitations. During the sessions for Way Down, producer Felton Jarvis had to piece together the best parts from different takes to create a cohesive final product. This was increasingly common in Elvis's later recordings, a stark contrast to his early career when he could nail perfect takes in 1 or 2 attempts. Still, even with a voice that was clearly diminished, Elvis manages to infuse Way Down with a certain emotional gravitas. There's something haunting about hearing him push through his physical limitations, determined to deliver one more hit. The strain in his voice tells its own story, one of a man fighting against his decline but still committed to his craft. Number 6, Hurt, 1976. Have you ever heard someone sing through pain? In 1976, Elvis recorded a cover of the Jimmy Crane and Al Jacobs song, Hurt, and the result is both magnificent and disturbing. The song's demands for emotional intensity and vocal power reveal a voice that's simultaneously impressive and compromised. Hurt requires dramatic, high notes and sustained vocal power. Elvis delivers this with remarkable force, but at what cost? Throughout the recording, you can hear him straining to hit the big notes, pushing his voice to limits that sound physically uncomfortable. There's a raspiness that wasn't present in his younger years, a quality that suggests his vocal cords were showing signs of wear. During this period, Elvis was dealing with numerous health issues. His weight was fluctuating dramatically, and he was taking a cocktail of prescription medications that affected everything from his energy levels to his vocal control. By the time he recorded Hurt, he had been performing intensively for decades with little vocal rest. The song itself is about emotional pain. And in a strange way, the strain in Elvis's voice adds an unintentional layer of authenticity. When he belts out the chorus, reaching for those high notes with everything he has, you can almost hear his physical struggle matching the emotional struggle of the lyrics. It's powerful, but it's also concerning when you know the context. In the studio sessions for Hurt, Elvis reportedly needed multiple takes to get through the song, something that would have been unusual in his early career. His voice would tire more quickly, and the consistent power needed for a song like this was becoming harder to maintain. Despite these challenges, Hurt became one of Elvis's last significant hits during his lifetime. The live performances of this song from his final tours are even more revealing, showing a man determined to deliver vocal power even as his health was failing. In concert footage, you can see the physical exertion required for him to hit those notes, sometimes turning red in the face from the effort. The song's dynamics made it especially challenging. Hurt starts relatively quietly before building to those massive belted choruses. This meant Elvis had to carefully manage his vocal resources throughout the song, saving his power for the big moments. You can hear this calculation in the recording, a professional making strategic decisions to work around growing limitations. What makes Hurt so fascinating is that despite the audible strain, it remains an impressive vocal performance. Even with his voice showing signs of wear and tear, Elvis could still deliver moments of stunning power that most singers couldn't match, even in their prime. It's a recording that captures both his enduring talent and his increasing vulnerability. Number 5. Unchained Melody. 1977. Can a performance be both magnificent and heartbreaking at the same time? Elvis's live version of Unchained Melody, recorded just months before his death, answers that question with a resounding yes. This rendition, captured during a concert in Rapid City, South Dakota, on June 21, 1977, shows Elvis in a profoundly compromised state, yet still capable of emotional power. From the opening notes, it's clear that Elvis's voice has changed dramatically from his prime. There's a thickness to his tone, a heaviness that reflects his physical condition at the time. He was significantly overweight, suffering from multiple health issues, and heavily medicated. All of these factors are audible in every note he sings. What makes this recording particularly revealing is that Elvis accompanies himself on piano, unusual for him in live settings. This choice may have been partly due to his reduced mobility on stage, but it also creates an intimate, vulnerable quality that amplifies the emotional impact of his strained voice. Throughout the performance, you can hear Elvis struggling with breath control. The long, sustained notes that Unchained Melody demands become battles of willpower, with his voice wavering and sometimes breaking. There are moments when he barely makes it through a phrase, seemingly running out of air before reaching the end of a line. Yet despite these limitations, or perhaps because of them, there's a raw emotional quality to this performance that many listeners find deeply moving. When Elvis reaches for the climactic high notes at "I Need Your Love," he pushes his voice to its absolute limits. The strain is palpable, his voice cracking and rough, but the emotional commitment is total. This recording became particularly famous after being featured in the video Elvis in Concert, broadcast posthumously. For many fans, it was shocking to see Elvis in such a diminished state. He appears visibly unwell, sweating profusely even while seated at the piano, his face puffy from medication and poor health. What's perhaps most poignant about this version of Unchained Melody is that beneath the vocal difficulties, you can still hear glimpses of the extraordinary instrument that made Elvis a legend. Occasionally, a phrase will emerge with that distinctive Elvis quality, the unique timbre and emotional directness that changed popular music forever. These moments make the struggling passages even more affecting, like watching a once great athlete managing occasional flashes of brilliance amid declining abilities. The audience at Rapid City received this performance with thunderous applause, either out of love for Elvis, regardless of his condition, or perhaps not fully registering how much he had changed. The recording stands as a document of a great artist in the final act of his life, giving everything he has left to his music, despite his body's increasing betrayals. Number 4. Suspicion, 1962. Is it possible to hear the seeds of vocal trouble even in Elvis's prime years? Suspicion, recorded in 1962 and released in 1964, captures Elvis during what should have been the peak of his vocal powers. Yet even here, attentive listeners can detect signs that not all was well with the King's voice. The early 1960s were a transitional period for Elvis. He had returned from military service in 1960 and was deeply immersed in his movie career, cranking out films and soundtrack albums at an industrial pace. This punishing schedule gave him little time for vocal rest, and Suspicion was recorded during a marathon session that produced songs for several different projects. In this recording, Elvis sings in a more controlled, restrained style than his 1950s rock and roll performances. On the surface, this might seem like an artistic choice, but some vocal experts have suggested it may also have been a technical necessity. There are moments in Suspicion where Elvis seems to approach certain notes with caution, as if aware of limitations that weren't present in his earlier years. The song's chorus requires sustained notes in a middle-high range that should have been comfortable territory for Elvis. Yet, there's a slight tightness in his delivery, a hint of vocal tension that wasn't characteristic of his most effortless performances. This isn't obvious vocal trouble, far from it, but rather subtle signs that the constant recording and performing might have been taking a toll. During this period, Elvis's movie contracts often required him to record up to a dozen songs in just a day or two, a schedule that would strain any singer's voice. Suspicion came from sessions that produced material for multiple uses, with Elvis expected to jump between different local styles and approaches with minimal preparation. What's interesting about Suspicion is how Elvis and the production team work around these subtle limitations. The arrangement features prominent backing vocals that support Elvis during the choruses, and the overall production has a lush, echo-heavy quality that creates a forgiving sonic environment. These choices may have been partly aesthetic, but they also served to cushion and complement a voice that was showing early signs of wear. None of this prevented Suspicion from being an excellent recording. In fact, the slight sense of vocal restraint actually enhances the song's mood of brooding uncertainty. Elvis infuses the lyrics with a smoldering intensity that perfectly captures the emotional state of a man tormented by jealousy and doubt. The recording was successful enough that when released as a single in 1964, it reached number 20 on the Billboard chart, despite being the B-side to Kiss Me Quick. This commercial success may have reinforced the idea that Elvis could continue pushing his voice at an unsustainable pace without obvious consequences, a pattern that would continue throughout the decade. Looking back at Suspicion with knowledge of Elvis's later vocal troubles, it serves as an early warning sign, a moment when attentive listeners might have noticed that even Elvis Presley's seemingly supernatural voice was subject to the laws of human physiology and the consequences of overuse. Number 3. Burning Love. 1972. When was the last time Elvis truly rocked out? Burning Love, recorded in 1972, represents one of Elvis's final forays into genuine rock and roll territory. This energetic track became his last major hit on the pop charts, reaching number 2 on Billboard. Yet beneath its driving rhythm and Elvis's enthusiastic delivery, careful listeners can detect signs that the King's voice wasn't what it once was. The song demands a youthful energy and vocal power that the 37-year-old Elvis struggles to fully deliver. Throughout the recording, his voice has a raspy, husky quality that's markedly different from the smooth, supple instrument of his early career. There's an audible strain when he pushes for the higher notes, particularly in the chorus. By 1972, Elvis had been performing regularly in Las Vegas and on tour for several years, often doing 2 shows a night. This schedule would be challenging for any singer, but it was particularly demanding on Elvis's voice, which was already showing signs of wear from decades of use. Additionally, his health was beginning to deteriorate, with increasing weight gain and medication use affecting his stamina and vocal control. What makes Burning Love particularly revealing is that it's a song that seems designed for a younger Elvis. The driving tempo and rock and roll styling harken back to his early hits, inviting comparisons between his voice in 1972 and his voice in 1956. Those comparisons highlight the changes in his vocal capabilities, the loss of that effortless upper range that characterized his youth. During the recording session, Elvis reportedly had difficulty maintaining the high energy level the song required. Producer Felton Jarvis had to push him to deliver the kind of robust vocal performance that once came naturally. The session musicians recalled that Elvis seemed physically tired, needing more breaks than he would have in earlier years. Despite these challenges, Burning Love succeeded commercially and remains one of Elvis's most recognized later hits. This success is a testament to his enduring charisma and musicality, even as his voice showed signs of deterioration. He compensates for the vocal limitations with a committed, emotionally present performance that sells the song's passion and urgency. The backing vocals play a crucial supporting role in this recording, filling in some of the sonic space that Elvis's voice might have occupied in his prime years. When he reaches for the culminating hunka hunka Burning Love lines, you can hear him pushing to the very edge of his capabilities, his voice taking on a strained, almost shouted quality. Live performances of Burning Love from this era reveal even more clearly the toll that years of performing and lifestyle choices had taken on Elvis's voice. In concert footage, you can watch him visibly exerting himself to produce the necessary power, his face reddening with effort during the more demanding passages. What's remarkable about Burning Love is that, despite these vocal challenges, it remains a compelling, exciting recording. Even with diminished resources, Elvis could create rock and roll magic, drawing on his unmatched musical instincts and the sheer force of his personality. The strain in his voice adds a poignant subtext to the song, the sound of an aging rocker refusing to surrender to time, giving everything he has to recapture the fire of his youth. Number 2, Moody Blue, 1976. What happens when an aging rock icon tries to adapt to changing musical trends? Moody Blue, recorded in 1976 in the Jungle Room at Graceland, represents Elvis's attempt to embrace contemporary sounds while working around his increasingly limited vocal capabilities. The result is a fascinating study in compromise and adaptation. From the opening notes, Moody Blue places Elvis in an uncharacteristic sonic landscape. The production features prominent synthesizers and a modern country pop arrangement that was far removed from his earlier rock and roll sound. This contemporary setting serves partly to disguise the fact that Elvis's voice had lost much of its former power and range. Throughout the recording, Elvis sings in a measured, controlled manner, rarely pushing his voice beyond comfortable limits. There's a heaviness to his tone, a thickness that reflects his physical condition at the time. By 1976, he was significantly overweight and taking numerous medications that affected everything from his energy levels to his vocal timbre. The song's melody stays mostly within a limited middle range, avoiding both the low growls and high cries that characterized Elvis's most dynamic performances. This seems like a deliberate choice to accommodate his diminished vocal flexibility. When he does attempt slightly higher notes in the chorus, you can hear a thin, strained quality that reveals his struggle. During the recording sessions, Elvis was reportedly unable to stand for long periods, often sitting while singing, a practice that affects breath support and vocal projection. Producer Felton Jarvis had to work creatively with what Elvis could provide, recording in short bursts and assembling the best moments into a cohesive performance. The lyrics of Moody Blue describe emotional volatility and changing feelings, which carries an unintentional irony given the controlled, somewhat flat emotional delivery Elvis provides. The passionate, expressive vocalist of earlier years is largely absent, replaced by a more subdued, careful singer managing his limited resources. Despite these limitations, Moody Blue became the title track of Elvis's final studio album, released during his lifetime, and reached #1 on the country charts. The record-buying public either didn't notice the vocal issues or remained loyal to Elvis, regardless of changes in his voice. The song's commercial success may have reinforced the idea that he could continue performing despite his deteriorating health. What makes Moody Blue particularly poignant is knowing that Elvis was just 41 years old when he recorded it, an age when many singers are still in their prime. The premature aging in his voice reflects the toll that his lifestyle and punishing performance schedule had taken on his body and his instrument. The backing vocals play a crucial role in this recording, filling sonic space and providing energy that Elvis himself seems unable to deliver consistently. The layered production creates a full, rich sound that partly compensates for the limitations in the lead vocal. It's a masterclass in how production techniques can support a struggling vocalist while still creating a commercially viable recording. In retrospect, Moody Blue serves as a document of Elvis's determination to continue creating music even as his body was failing him. There's something both sad and admirable about hearing him adapt to his circumstances, finding a way to remain relevant despite the physical challenges that were increasingly apparent to those around him. #1. Are You Lonesome Tonight? Live, 1977. Can one performance encapsulate both the greatness and tragedy of Elvis Presley's career? In 1977, during a concert in Rapid City, South Dakota, Elvis delivered a version of Are You Lonesome Tonight? That has become infamous among fans. This wasn't just a performance showing vocal strain. It was a complete breakdown that revealed just how unwell the king had become. The recording begins normally enough, with Elvis starting the familiar ballad in a shaky but recognizable voice. What happens next is extraordinary. He seems to lose his place entirely, forgetting the lyrics and beginning to improvise nonsensical words. His voice wanders off key, sometimes mumbling, sometimes forced into a strained falsetto that bears little resemblance to his once magnificent instrument. Most disturbing is the moment when Elvis begins to speak the song's recitation section. Rather than delivering the poetic lines about a stage play ending, he lapses into confused, rambling speech. His words slur, and he seems genuinely disoriented, laughing inappropriately, as if aware something is wrong, but unable to correct course. By June 1977, Elvis was in severely declining health. He had gained significant weight, suffered from multiple ailments, including glaucoma, high blood pressure, and liver damage, and was taking a dangerous cocktail of prescription medications. All of these factors are audible in this painful performance, which sounds like a man whose mind and body are failing him in real time. The audience's reaction is a mixture of nervous laughter and uncomfortable silence. Some fans likely thought Elvis was deliberately playing for laughs, not recognizing that they were witnessing the collapse of an American icon before their eyes. Elvis himself seems both confused and somewhat aware of his condition, occasionally laughing at his own inability to perform the song properly. This version of "Are You Lonesome Tonight?" has become known as the laughing version. But the laughter has a disturbing quality that suggests disorientation rather than humor. Band members later recalled being deeply concerned during this performance, recognizing that something was seriously wrong with their boss. What makes this recording particularly heartbreaking is the context. "Are You Lonesome Tonight?" had been one of Elvis's signature ballads since 1960, a song he had performed countless times with perfect control and emotional depth. To hear him unable to make it through this familiar material reveals just how far his health had deteriorated. Despite being widely bootlegged, his performance wasn't officially released until decades after Elvis's death, when RCA included it on a compilation of live recordings. Its inclusion was controversial, with some fans feeling it exploited Elvis at his most vulnerable, while others argued it was an important historical document of his final months. Throughout this disastrous performance, Elvis's backing band continues playing professionally, trying to provide structure around his increasingly chaotic vocal. The musicians maintain the song's familiar arrangement, seemingly hoping that Elvis will find his way back to the proper lyrics and melody. Their steady professionalism only highlights Elvis's disorientation more starkly. The June 1977 "Are You Lonesome Tonight?" stands as perhaps the most extreme example of Elvis's vocal deterioration, a painful document of a great artist losing control of the instrument that had made him a legend. Less than 2 months later, on August 16, 1977, Elvis Presley would be found dead at Graceland, bringing his story to a premature end at age 42. Was it fair to expect superhuman perfection from a mere mortal with the voice of an angel? Do these moments of vulnerability make Elvis's greatest performances shine even brighter?